Happy Saturday. I am Kimberley Robinson Alexander. I am coming to you with B-InPowerD movement. And I have another sister friend. I got a lot of those, right? You hear me say that a lot. But I do honestly believe that God brings people into your life at the time and in the place and space that you need them. For you to pour into them, but for them also to pour into you. And Alisha Small is one of those people. I met her through her sister, who is has been around with me and hanging tough for almost 9 years at this point. Alisha Small, I'm gonna get it right because I messed it up earlier, is the founder and the CEO of Living Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting. She is out of Maryland. She is a personal development coach, a certified personal development coach. And she focuses on coaching and training. But beyond that, my sister girl is a self-care guru, a self-care nut who enjoys all of those things. So grab your drink, grab your tea. It's after, what time is it? It's after 5 o'clock. So go ahead and get your adult beverage if you so choose. But we are going to spend the next hour talking about self-care and what that journey has looked like for her, for me, where we sit now, and how we can share advice with our audience on just how to take care of yourself. Like anything else in the mental health journey, it is a journey. It is a spectrum, and it has ebbs and flows, right? Like it changes over time. So hang tight, get your stuff. I'm going to do a little bit of sharing so that everybody has access and can join in. But Alisha, tell us, how are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. A plus is, since we're talking about self-care, I did have a nap before I came on because I had a very long morning. Anybody that's watching this knows that like I had really, really short hair yesterday. I'm preparing for, because anybody that's looking like, wow, what happened? So I'm preparing for my 41st birthday, and 40 is the milestone, but 41, I think every birthday is, I consider every birthday a milestone, but for me, there's some really exciting things happening right now in personal and in business. I'm celebrating a lot. Life is good. I will not complain about anything. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Yes, amen. I hear you. I understand, I get it. I am actually one of those people who believes that every birthday is a milestone as well. You know, every year is another opportunity, another blessing, another accomplishment. So I celebrate every single birthday. You know, I think that we should. I think it's amazing. Congratulations on all of the good things that are happening for you.
Yeah.
All of the things that you have going on. You are so deserving. I watch you, online, you on your grind, you doing it, just making those connections. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we know that self-care is super important. It's paramount in each individual's lives. I want to start out just by lifting up that self-care does not mitigate burnout.
Right.
It does not. You can't self-care yourself to healthy. The conversation we're going to have tonight is not about using self-care methods to bring yourself back from the edge. Self-care needs to be woven into our everyday lives. The way you get up and you brush your teeth and you shower and you eat 2 to 3 meals a day, Some of us exercise on a regular basis. The way that we are managing ourselves on a regular basis, the things that we feel cannot not be done, right? Like we can't not brush our teeth and leave the house and go to work. It's not socially acceptable to go outside without combing your hair. It is not socially acceptable to go 5, 6, 7 days without showering. It needs to stop being acceptable, both socially and personally, for us not to have self-care practices.
Yeah. And also, yeah, when you're talking, what I hear is also what is your definition of self-care, right? And so what I mean by that is, so mine's changed over time throughout my journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Young, living in a certain environment, coming from a certain place, that wasn't a thing, right? I didn't know what self-care was. And as I got into my young adulthood and I started to evaluate and learn who I was and unlearn who I wasn't, self-care looked different. Self-care looked like going to get my hair done and my nails done and those types of things. And they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got a little bit older and I became a mother, and I have 2 children. I had my first child and now I have 2. I'm getting deeper into my motherhood. Mm-hmm. Self-care looked like addressing the unhealed parts of me. Mm-hmm. Right? It wasn't just getting my hair done and my nails done and those maintenance things, right? It was who I was becoming as a woman, mm-hmm. right? So my idea of self-care evolved over time. There were things that I had to unlearn for me, and for a lot of women, and I'll get even more specific, for a lot of Black women, mm-hmm. Just like me, I was raised by some of the most strongest, beautifulest Black women. However, the example that I had of how you're supposed to take care of yourself mm-hmm. looked totally different than what I believe, what are next to my core values and beliefs, right? I was taught what I saw and not necessarily, well, yeah, right? My example, this is what I was taught, that, you took care of everyone around you, regardless of whether you had the capacity to or not, right? Your door was always open, whether you had the capacity to or not, right? And you gave and you gave and you gave and you gave. It wasn't normalized to receive. It wasn't normalized to expect mm-hmm. a certain level of quality, right? Quality of life, right? Being deserving of it, right? Always having to do. I didn't know how to be, right? And understanding that I didn't have to do anything, mm-hmm. right? So all of those, and also being proactive. When you were talking, I heard being proactive. This is not you get sick and then you start taking care of yourself. These are things that are in harmony with, this is your everyday life. This is your lifestyle. And that's one of the things that I learned up until right now, and being proactive. Self-care also, and as I got a little bit further into motherhood and in my 30s, self-care also included who I was as a woman, my core values, right? And making sure that the things that I did on a daily basis, my habits, they all connected to what I believe, who I was as a person, is my self-care, right? Making sure that I invest in myself, making sure that I heal, the parts of me that may still be broken or that I have, hidden deep down. I'll talk later on about that. I just discovered something about myself and how I subconsciously handle rejection, mm-hmm. right? Didn't know that how this was coming up for me. And so to your point about making sure that self-care is a lifestyle and it's embedded, I'm like, all right, I got to get on top of that, because guess what? This could possibly, it is going to hinder how I do business. It is going to hinder how I have relationships. It's going to hinder how I take criticism and correction, right? And so, yeah, so I'm proactive.
Absolutely. All of those things. And what I would add to that is self-care is not always easy.
Yeah.
Self-care is not about, or it's not always about the flowers and the fluffy and a new hairstyle and a new, shopping adventure and a new set of nails. Self-care sometimes forces you to dig deep. And what we're looking for is evolution,
Yeah.
right? We want to evolve ourselves during our self-care journey. That is part of it. You want to be your whole self. And um part of my self-care journey was reuniting all of the parts of me.
Yeah.
Right? Like introducing all of the pieces and the parts of me to each other so that I could begin the journey of feeling whole.
Yeah.
And that wasn't easy. That is not easy because it's actually an ongoing journey for me. It is not easy. And so we're going to talk real self-care today.
Yeah.
You alluded to, some traumas growing up and differences. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are the things that you had to start to heal to get to where you are?
So just some of the things that I had to heal, I think one of the most important things was my level of self-confidence, my level of worth, because what I started to see was I always wanted a certain lifestyle for myself. I always wanted certain things. And even as I got into entrepreneurship, left my city job. You can hear in my voice that I'm not from Maryland. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And so, in Brooklyn, started my first business, and, I'm a mom, and that started off shaky, but then, business started to pick up. And even in that space, as, and I'm very organized. I'm big on structure. I'm up early in the morning. I'm very disciplined. And even with that, there were some things that I was still dealing with. So like I say all of that to say I knew what I wanted, and I would write these things down. And what I learned is you can write it down and make it plain. That's like the Bible says, write it down and make it plain. But if you don't believe that you deserve everything that you're writing down and you're saying, there's a problem. And that's where my problem lies. So I had to address, why didn't I feel that I was worthy of feeling a certain way, being treated a certain way, looking a certain way? My confidence, the feelings of rejection, right? That unbeknownst to me, just maybe last week, there's still some remnants of that left over, right? That I didn't know. That it doesn't look like how it looked at 26. It comes up different, right? And so those were just some of the things that I had to deal with that I didn't deal with. I want to say mid 30s, yeah, because my daughter was born, Logan was born. It started to resurface in different areas of my life. And I said, okay, wait a minute. I had to stop. Literally one night I had to stop, and I said, okay, how do you want to show up? Like, how do you want to show up as a woman? How do you want to show up in the world? What does that look like? And I had to go through those things. And I remember asking myself, and this is where my level of awareness and my idea of self-care changed. And what I did for myself changed. And I said, who do you need? What do you need to be well? And one of those things was a therapist. I said, okay, I have to get into therapy. And that was a journey. That was a journey trying different therapists, making sure that I had the right people around me, right? And so I knew that, okay, now self-care looks like I have the certain things that I need in my life, the certain habits, and then I have the certain people, my support system, my team, who's on my team to help. Like, and that was another thing too. I thought things had to be hard. Right. So there were things that I had to heal from, and then there were also things that I had to unlearn. See, I'm learning myself, right? And like you said, that's a lifelong process. So we come into this world and we are clothed with someone else's beliefs, right? Their habits. We're learning from whoever it is that's in charge of raising us, right? Who had a hand in raising us, and then we grow up, right? And sometimes we feel it, right? We start to see like, this doesn't sit well with me, or no, I really don't believe this, right? And so peeling back those layers and figuring out who Alisha was, right? And so I was doing all of that at one time while being a mother, while being a wife, while being an entrepreneur. So to speak to what you say, it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy, right? Because then there comes self-accountability. And sometimes it's not easy to look in the mirror and say, what you say and what you're doing is not adding up, and why.
Yeah, that introspection part, oh baby, it'll kick you behind. But before we move on to something else, I was writing down notes because there were several things that you said that I want to go back to. First of all, the healing part. I hear people say all the time, I'm healed, as in past tense. And when I hear that, my response is usually until your trigger comes to your face. Like when your trigger is straight face, fat foot in your face, muscle memory will tell you and show you something different. And like you said, it might not look the same as 25, 26, but like any 12-step NA, AA program, HA, Healing Anonymous, says you got to continue to work that program. You have to continue to check in with your sponsor. You have to continue to self-evaluate. This is no different. This journey is no different. So I think one of the first things that we have to do as people is stop putting an ED behind heal. We are on a healing journey. We are working on healing ourselves. But I don't think that most people who have something that they need to overcome get past that just like that, and it's a once and done thing. I think it's an ongoing thing. Kudos to you for recognizing how your trigger morphed, how your response morphed, I should say, and recognizing that you needed to address that.
But so here's the thing, right? I didn't. It was my husband that did. So this is why it's really important to be connected to people who love you, right? Who can correct you, right? And who are advocates for your well-being as well. Because, I was preparing for something, another big opportunity, and we are talking to him about my ideas, and he says to me, basically he says to me like, well, that sounds like a testimonial, and I don't feel like that's great. Your story is great, but how you're telling it is not for this time and not for this platform. And the feeling that I felt And I'm not even conscious of how I'm explaining to him how I felt. And he said to me, this is why it's so important that you really sit down for where you are and you're like, who do I need?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, the way you're describing how you're feeling and your reactions, the words that you're using, it sounds like you feel rejected.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, he said, this reminds me of a time where we were going through when you didn't feel like you were enough.
Mm. Mm.
And in that moment, right, because I'm explaining to him, like, I knew that this day was going to come. I didn't know when, but I knew that this opportunity was going to come. I had this whole idea of, what this was going to look like, what I was going to say. And then boom, you tell it to someone and they say, absolutely not.
Well, who you expect to kind of be like, yes, baby, yes.
Right. And I'm like, no, I don't feel, that's not what I'm feeling. And I started to cry. And he said, why are you crying? Mm-hmm. And I said, because I'm just so passionate. He said, that's not passion. Mm-hmm. He said, because you didn't even cry when you found out that you got an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so, one, having who you need in your corner, but then two, being humble enough and loving yourself enough to go back and think, because I had to go back and I had to think that particular thing. Sometimes I can process things in real time. And then I said, okay, because I'm so passionate about who I am as a woman, my personal development and my self-care, I always, even if I don't do it right in the moment, because I'm feeling in the moment. Mm-hmm. So that particular thing, I couldn't do both at the same time. But when I went back and thought, I'm like, and I started connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I got to make an appointment with therapy, because I just got on a point where I'm on an as need basis. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, boom, I'm back here again, because when I was here, right, I learned skills to deal with my feelings of rejection here. Now I'm here. Mm-hmm. And so now I have to learn skills to deal with it at this level. So to your point, that growth is a lifelong process. You're always becoming, and what it looks like here is not what it looks like here.
Yep. Absolutely different. So talking about having the right people makes me want to go one step backwards and talk about trust.
Yeah.
Because I know, speaking for myself, I did not grow up in an environment where I had a lot of people to trust.
Yeah.
And breaking down that wall is hard.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable when your example or your environment has taught you the complete opposite of vulnerability is so hard to do.
Yeah.
So I bring that up because self-care sometimes to me is like an outline, or even better example, long-term and short-term goals, right?
Yeah.
Like my long-term goal is to have a confidant that can say anything to me, and I know it's sound, is good, we good. It won't dismantle the relationship. Like, we're gonna be straight, right? But then there's 15 steps I need to go through to get to that point, right? Because it's not just who that person is, it's who you are with that person. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I sit and I think about, what do I need to get to that point?
Yeah.
I need to learn how to trust. I need to learn how to relinquish. I need to learn to be vulnerable. I need to learn to speak and communicate clearly. I need to learn to use my rational mind instead of my emotional mind. I need to learn how to wait.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's all of these steps that I have to go through to be ready for the person that I need, who's going to do the correcting, who's going to do the talking, who's going to do the honesty, who's going to help me to identify the things that I need to go back to, or as the old people say, when my slip is showing.
Yeah.
Right? Like I need to work to that. And then you also mentioned different therapists. And I hear a lot of people say stuff like therapy didn't work for me. And my retort is always the same. How many, did you try another one? No, I only saw one. Well, hell, I meet a lot of people that don't work for me all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure, you date. You may have dated 10 people before you found your person.
Yeah.
Finding the right therapist is like dating.
Yeah.
You are going in and you have your list of things that are must-haves. You have your list of things that are nice to have, and you have your deal breakers. And so I know I've been through several therapists. I'm currently, in fact, I just had my first appointment with a new therapist last week, and so that's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey in mindset too, because you want to think about how people think, especially in our community, and how they think about therapy. A lot of the times therapy, we have this idea around therapy that it means that something is wrong.
That's right.
Right. And in our community, that was taboo. That was frowned when you going to therapy. That's just like, when you talk about individuals with disabilities and getting your child evaluated, there's nothing wrong with my child. This is what we were taught. So a lot of the times, when you hear that, oh, I tried therapy, it doesn't work for me. I went to one, I go back to what I hear you first saying about, I kept hearing safety, right? Having these safe spaces. And actually believing that, one, there's people out there that are committed to your safety. There are safe spaces. And no, therapy doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Therapy is a proactive approach, right? For you to continue to grow, for you to continue to equip yourselves with the skill. Therapy is a tool. At this moment, nothing is wrong. However, I know that I'm consistently growing. I'm climbing in my career. Things are moving really fast for me. And like I said, I have to, especially as a mother, especially as a wife, especially as a personal development coach. There's no way that I can make an impact with the people, the community that I serve, if I am not constantly investing in myself. There's no way, right? Because I'm going to reach a cap, right? And so if my cap is 5, and someone comes to me and they're looking for me to take them to a 10, I cannot assist anyone past my own level of healing.
That's right.
And so I'm always thinking about, one, me, my well-being, of course, because I can't do all of these things that I'm called to do. I can't serve who I'm called to serve without being well. But outside of myself, the people that I serve, that's first and foremost. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Am I equipping myself with the skills to be able to be a community advocate, a community and policy advocate? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do to show this person in real time that their belief, what they saw was, they grew up in a household where what goes on in this house stays in this house. and you don't talk about the things that were that built that resentment and that mistrust and that unsafety. You don't talk about what happened to you.
Yep.
You don't let people in on your business.
Yep.
Is what they're bringing, right? And I understand that, because therapy is kind of like transactional, right? This represents a person that's outside of your family that you're telling your business to that you don't really know, and that was frowned upon in our community.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, for me, and I know we'll get into that. This is why being an advocate is so important to me, so that not just in our community, but just people in general have that physical example of, no, it is okay.
Yep.
There are people that create safe spaces for you to come in, and self-care looks like this, and taking care of your mental health looks like this. And, so yeah.
Absolutely. Then I want to talk a little bit about who Black women are to the community. We've seen an uptick in these conversations. You and I have been having these conversations for a long time, but Black women especially are not given permission to show up authentically, especially in the workplace, many times in their own homes, right? Many times amongst their own families. There is this idea of who and what we are.
Yeah.
And we carry. And many of us carry until we're broken. And I personally believe that that's rooted in colonialism. It's rooted in how the Black woman carried so much throughout history, throughout slavery, throughout all of those things. It's also rooted in Black women being the cornerstone of our communities. And we can carry without being broken.
Absolutely.
We can teach without losing ourselves.
Yeah.
We can learn without transforming who we are. But that is probably one of the hardest lessons, I think, to actually learn.
Yeah. Because it's unlearning, right? When you talked about what is rooted in, absolutely is generational. We talked early on, we started off the show talking about how we were raised by some of the most beautiful, strong Black women, and but their idea of self-care, well, one, that wasn't even a thing. I didn't hear the term self-care or taking care of yourself. I heard take care of your children, take care of your spouse. I had a grandmother. I don't know if there's anybody on this earth that's more beautiful than her. God rest her soul. And I remember when I was thinking about this show and what we were going to talk about, I thought about her, and I thought about how, and it was kind of almost like it was like that was like a rite of passage. Like, yeah, we never saw grandma cry. And when I sit at 40, turning 41 now, I'm like, because I know for a fact she had a lot to cry about.
Yep.
Right. When I think about my own mother and things like that. So this is definitely it absolutely is generational. So it's difficult, the unlearning.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And there's such a component of guilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
dare I want to be different than those women that we revere, right? Like you just said, I don't know if there was a woman more beautiful on this earth than your grandmother. And I would say the same thing about mine. And we're not necessarily, I mean, they were beautiful outwardly, of course, but we're not even necessarily talking about aesthetics, right? Like we're talking about the being, the soul of the person, right? And how dare I want to be different than the women in my life who I revere, right? It's counterintuitive, and it's unaccepting, because then you return and you have the people who, oh, you think you're too good. Oh, so what you trying to do with yourself, right? Like we have the noise that we then have to compartmentalize, push away, and then deal with at a later time. But it goes back to your statement about self-confidence and worth. Figuring out that I am worthy of the journey that I have put myself on.
Yeah. So I'll be very transparent right now. So what you just said, I'll give you an example of that. So anybody that knows me, anybody that follows me, has been on my personal development journey. I've been very transparent about that. My weight loss journey, my physical health journey. And I've always been up and down, right? I come from a line of generational plus size, my dad, my mom at one time, this is what we dealt with generationally. And I don't have I am, when I get my mind focused on something, I'm very disciplined. I don't have a problem losing weight. I lose weight really fast. But later on in my journey, I realized that I didn't have a weight issue. I had a mental health issue, right? And one of the things, it was many things, right? The binge eating, right? Binge eating disorder, emotional eating, the how I coped, the unresolved trauma. But the biggest thing that came up for me is I would get to a certain weight and I'm like, okay. And it wasn't necessarily healthy. I would lose a certain amount of weight or go back up, to fluctuate. And so I remember, sitting with myself and thinking to myself, the issue isn't you looking a certain way. The issue is, why don't you feel like you deserve to look a certain way? Why are you okay with certain things? Why do you feel like you're undeserving or it's something wrong with looking your best, wanting to look your best, wanting to feel your best, right? Wanting to look whatever that is for that particular person, right? And we don't talk about that part, right? When you go to the doctor, and this is why I'm a big advocate on, especially with Black women, because you hear things all the time, oh, Black women, we're thick, we love to eat, and this, that, and the third, right? However, and let me say, like, I love, me and my sister, we love to go out to eat, we love to have the experience, we love to do all of that things, but a lot of the times when you're talking about that, you're talking about, we don't talk about why we're eating. We're eating for comfort, right? We're eating to cope, right? And so, like, I had to deal with that. And once I dealt with that, not to say I was off to the races and I lost this weight, and no, right? Because there were some health issues that I had, and I had to address that, and I became plant-based. But even in that was like an up and down, because I learned so much about myself. But the level of self-awareness that I had, I was able to be honest with myself and know that consistency and activity, that's my area of growth, right? But then also being okay with saying, I'm not okay with this. right? And I'm worthy of feeling like this. I'm worthy of a certain lifestyle and my life looking like this, and that include, like, I should be active every day. This is supposed to be a lifestyle, not something that I do like that's checked off on my to-do list. And I deserve to look my best, right? And I deserve to feel like this in my clothes. And right, so those were the things that, like, I was dealing with. Like,
Mhm.
why do you feel like you don't deserve that? And why is this level of care, why is that okay with you?
Mhm. You know, I think one of the things I know for me in some ways that came along with that was allowing my partner to determine what I should look like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the idea that I needed an external somebody to validate what it was that I was going to look like then turned into an awareness for me of my need to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I wore my hair the way my partner wanted me to. And I wore my clothes the way he wanted me to. And if we were going out together, he got to decide what I was wearing, even if I was uncomfortable in what it was that I was wearing. Um, but it also spills over to the workplace.
Yeah.
Having a mohawk is not um, businesslike. You know, dressing in a particular way is not businesslike. Having a nose ring is not businesslike, right? Like those expressions of who we are. Having kinky hair,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're still fighting that battle.
Yeah.
You know, being able to look the way that you want to look. Go even church, right?
Yeah.
Women don't wear pants to church. Um, your skirt has to come to this place, or you need to cover your head if you're in a certain part of the church or you have a certain title. And I think that Black women across the board in the patriarchy that is America, especially, have been told what to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be accepted, we have done certain things, right? Like in 2025, to be accepted, some women are going to buy a butt and
Yeah.
going to buy breasts and removing ribs and getting all of these things. So I've had 4 children and I look like I've had 4 children. And so I don't say that in even a demeaning way. I
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that to say I wear the scars of the beauty that is bringing life into this world. Right. And so people are like, oh, I'm going to get a mommy makeover. Like, why are we not proud of those things? Right. Like, yes, why are we trying to erase who we are as givers of life, as
Mm-hmm.
people who facilitate the gift of life and coming into this world? And so um that was part of my self-care journey, right? Like just realizing that I can look how I want to look
Mm-hmm.
without needing permission, validation, or reinforcement from anybody around me, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to move on and I want to talk more about some of those challenges that you were bringing up before and what self care looks like for you now. You talked about therapy already, but what are some of the other things that you do? And what is some of the advice that you give to your clients?
So what self-care looks like for me now? Self-care looks like boundaries. Self-care looks like rest and knowing that I don't have to earn rest. Rest is non-negotiable. It's like you said in the beginning, like there are things that we need to live, right? And this is something that I need to live and to live well, making sure that I'm resting properly, I'm eating properly, I'm active, just having a certain living a healthy lifestyle, and it not being something like I'm checking off my to-do list, like like I'm doing what work. No, this is how I live. Self-care is making sure that I have a clean home and it's organized, because that's what I thrive in. Self-care is knowing exactly what and who I need to be well, and what that looks like for me. Again, therapy, making sure that I have a strong support system. Self-care looks like asking for help. I have no pride around because when we would like we were saying, we're talking about self-worth and knowing, no, I deserve to live what they call now a soft life, right? This is normal for me, right? And what and who is going to make life easier for me, right? We were shamed about that as well, like, oh, you're not working hard enough. I don't do that anymore, right? Because it doesn't have, certain things don't have to be hard, right? And the idea around, so I'll just speak for myself. I was dealing with a certain level of trauma to the point where I thought it was normal. Like, if it wasn't hard, it wasn't right. Right. And so now self-care is, hey, I need help. And hey, can you, I need, what do I need to do to be able to afford to delegate these responsibilities, putting everything on the table? Okay, how can I do this as easy as possible? Right? Calling up my mom or my sister or my mother-in-law, whoever, the kids. When I came in here today, I had a very long morning, and I sent out a very detailed text in the family text and said, hey, just got in. I'm going to go upstairs. I ordered some food. I did not cook for the kids. That's not what's happening this weekend, right? I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to lock my door. I'm going to enjoy my food, right? I'm going to rest. I have something that I'm doing later on, and this is what I need you guys to do for me. And that's what self-care looks like at going on to 41, making sure that I have all the components I need in place to be well, but then also actively on a daily basis investing in my self-care and my awareness, like I was telling you earlier about the discovering that there's some things I need to tie up with feeling not enough. Right? So making sure that I'm always evaluating things like that, and then going to get the proper help. So that's what it looks like to me, making sure that I am living what it is that I'm teaching, living what it is that I'm walking it, how I'm talking it.
You brought up something that's really, really important. You said that you sent a text message in your family group chat, and you explained to your children what it is that you need. And I grew up in a generation, and you may not have, where children didn't know what parents needed. We knew they needed us to go to the store. We knew, I want some ice cold Pepsi, get me a ginger ale. I knew those things, right? I knew
my alarm.
I knew those physical things, or those transactional things that my mother needed, right? But I didn't know what she needed to feel whole. I didn't know what she needed to truly feel okay. Right? I didn't know those things about her. And I think there is a level of teaching that we have to do as parents, right? And I think it's two things. It's teaching our children more than just self-sufficiency
Yeah.
in its traditional or in its older sense, right? It's not just sewing a hole in your sock and ironing, even though these kids nowadays, I guess none of them sew or iron, but I think we lose something with each generation.
Yeah.
But those things, right? Like for me, what was really core in my household is I saw many men in my family and even dated men who went from pillar to post. And what I mean by that is they went from their mother's house to the girlfriend's house, and then to the next girlfriend's house. And they really didn't experience living on their own. And that was because they were ill equipped to do so.
Yeah.
Right? They were ill equipped to do so in my community. And so for me, for my sons, you will know how to iron your own clothes and do your own laundry and cook your own meals and understand, what bills are and that kind of stuff. Like that was teaching my sons that was really important because I never wanted them to stay with a woman because they need it.
Yeah.
And so I think added to that list of knowing how to cook 3 things for breakfast and 3 things for lunch. So you never starve. You have a little bit of variety, all of those kinds of things are those self-care practices. Is that journaling? Is that, identifying the things that make you feel good, finding your person and growing with that person, understanding all of those things. We as parents have to add that in. And then we have to give ourselves permission to be vulnerable even with them.
Absolutely. And again, I always say that children do some of what you say, they do all of what you do. When we grew up, that wasn't a thing. We didn't talk about self-care. We just did what we saw, what was being done in the household. So when I had my children, it was very important for me. I said, okay, I'm creating a new culture. I'm creating a new foundation. I'm breaking generational curses. And what does that look like? That looks like I'm the example, right? I'm the physical manifestation of what it looks like to truly take care of yourself, right? And how I love and how I treat people and how I use my core values as a catalyst every day. And my habits are aligned with what I believe in. So like for my children, they get one self-care day a month off from school to do whatever it is that they want to do, because we, especially now, and they have so much access to social media and stuff like that, but we inherited that hustle and bustle, and you go and you go and you go and you go, and you just deal with what's left of you.
Yep.
Right. And so I needed for them, their normal was going to be, they weren't going to inherit that. Their normal was going to be, I take care of myself first for me, and then so that I can be all that I'm called to be, right? I can do all of these things and I can do them well, right? And nothing comes before my health, because the fact of the matter is, and it's plain and simple, you can't win it if you're not in it. Right. And you don't have to worry about doing all of the things, serving all of the people that you're called to serve if you're sick, if you're not well, whether in all areas of your life.
Yep.
So what does that mean? You have to take care of yourself. That's a non-negotiable. Yep. In this house, you have to take care of you. Right. And so I am the gatekeeper in this house, right? They learn how to set boundaries because of me, and no, I don't feel guilty about it, right? I did, right? Because that's another thing that I saw growing up. Like, you give everything to your children and you live for your children. And if you're not with your children, if you miss a moment, you miss a game, and there was a point in my motherhood where I embodied that. I took someone else's core values and beliefs, and guess what happened? I was sitting with my children, and I was physically there, but I wasn't mentally present.
Mhm.
And then I started to get resentful, right? And then I started to get irritable. And then I started to get all of these things because I wasn't pouring into myself, which didn't make me a good mom.
Yep.
Does make me a good mom is saying, hey, I had a long morning. They know not to bombard me as soon as I get in the house. I love you too. And give me all the hugs, but I need my space.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And once I finish taking my nap, I'm energized. All of these things I can be all of the things to you. I have a daughter, right? And she's going to be a mother one day. She's going to leave me and she's going to make her own family. And this is why I proudly say I don't live for my children.
Mm-hmm.
Because one day they are going to depart from me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to be Alisha, the woman, how I came into this world. And, I don't want to just be figuring out, and as a grandmother, who I am as a woman. I don't live for my children.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people like that. It's like they get to retirement or they become empty nesters and they have absolutely no idea what to do. And I lived by myself probably for about 2 years. And like the most common question I got was, don't you miss the kids? Like, aren't you sad? No.
I'm having the time of my life.
Like, I am the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait for them to go again. Like I want happy whole children, but you don't have to live with me. I know. I have plenty. I'm telling you, plenty to do without you being here.
Yeah.
And it's hard when your identity, because that's what I hear. What I hear you saying is when your identity is wrapped up in your children or anything else, right? Like if your identity is wrapped up in somebody else's core values, if your identity is wrapped up in your children and work, right? Yeah. For me, at one point it was work, right? Like what you put into work, you get out of work in theory, and in most cases. So that was the thing that I threw, myself into. But who you are, like that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say beginning to identify who you are needs to be one of the first steps of your journey, right? Like, how do you even come up with your self-care manual, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that if you haven't identified the things that are a part of you?
Yeah.
What you like now, what you've outgrown, what you would like to try new, all of those things.
Yeah. And if I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have waited, right? So that I could figure out who I was and who I wasn't, unlearn certain things. You're never totally quite prepared for motherhood, right? But if I would have waited a little longer to discover who I was just a little bit more, I could have started that process opposed to being a mom, bringing with me all of the parenting skills that I learned, growing up, right? That didn't serve me, that didn't serve my children. And so having to do all of that at one time, God is so good. And I'm glad that I'm able to, I did it. I'm able to still do it in real time. And just constantly grow and get better at it. But it's hard, it's difficult. And I always say, if I knew then, what I knew now. That is the first part, like investing in my personal development, figuring out who I am, what I believe in, not what I inherited, right? Sometimes some things that I inherited serve me, but some of them did not.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that into my parenting. But like I said, thank God that I was able to catch certain things and turn them around and do it all at the same time. Which again, I'll say it's not easy. It's not easy. But yeah, that awareness,
Mm-hmm.
that level of awareness, that investing in yourself, investing in your personal development, so that you can show up for yourself first, but for your children, whatever. If you're not a parent, whatever role that you play in life, so you can show up, fully and serve from the place that you're supposed to serve from.
Yeah, I think that's actually, before I give you the floor and allow you, a couple of minutes to just give, a list of advice to our community, as well as share your information so people can reach you. I think that's a really good point to end on, because my community has heard me share, many times. I became a parent at 16. I got pregnant when I was 15 and I had my daughter at 16. I was completely unhealed, like like completely, like the epitome of girl, you need to deal, was me at 16 years old. And in many ways, for each one of my four children, they became collateral damage to a part of me that was struggling at different times in my life as I had my children. And like you, um, I'm still in the process of fixing, bringing along, and all of and teaching different things. But I also know that you, and others can do better. And
Yeah.
so I say that's a great point to end on for this conversation, because you can start your self-care journey, you can start your healing process, you can start your your Healing Anonymous, and go through your 12-step program whenever. Don't feel like, because I don't think I got it right here, that I can't start this now, or that you can't repair. You don't have to leave things in disrepair, including yourself,
Yeah.
including yourself. And so I think that's a great point to end on. Um, take your self-care journey, go to your Healing Anonymous, and begin where you are, meet yourself where you are, and find the people who are capable of meeting you there and helping you along. Alisha Small, thank you so much. I want you to close us out.
Yeah.
Um, give us 5 top-tier things that we can do for ourselves, and then please let us know how we can contact you, if we are in need for the guru that you are.
5. Let's see. So, of course, the first, the most important thing is invest in your personal development. Invest in who you are as a person. I cannot stress how important it is for you to know that who you are as a person, woman or man, it is the prerequisite, that sets the tone for success in all areas of your life. There's no real you and work you. There's no separation. There's you, and
Right.
you show up in everything that you do. So investing in who you are as a person, strengthening your self advocacy skills, and your self awareness, because the more you know, the more you grow, right? And I'll go on to two. Self-awareness could look like Not knowing that you don't know is more powerful than you would ever believe. I would work with people and we've talked about self-care and personal development, and they've been really transparent and say, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to take care of myself. And they don't know how powerful that level of self-awareness, they don't even know, like, that's top tier right there, knowing that you don't know. So don't feel ashamed that you don't know.
Yeah.
That's a perfect place to be in. So now you figuring out, okay, so what do I have to do to know? Right. And three, putting yourself in, doing things and putting yourselves in environments for you to strengthen your self-awareness. Everything comes from being aware. And I say that because, again, we live in a very fast-paced environment. We're always on the go. We got to get up. We got, and then we have access to so much social media and all of those things. And everybody's family dynamic is different. And by the time that you look up, it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And so as much as you want, and you write it down, and you want your life to look like this and to feel like this and it to go like this, are you putting yourself in position? Are you in environments for you to really sit down and think about, what does this look like on a daily basis? What do I need and who do I need? And then that's number 4. What do you need and who do you need to be well? I think one of the greatest lessons that I learned is asking for help. You need help. One of I always say to I meet my children where they are. Sometimes I try to talk like how they talk, and I always tell them the craziest thing I ever did was say to someone, I don't need your help. Or sit there and knowing that if this person can guide me and this be that much easier for me, and not take the help, I would never do that again in life, ever. So getting the help that you need, speak that self-advocacy, saying what, self-awareness, knowing what you need, self-advocacy, being able to communicate it, and self-worth, knowing that you deserve to receive, knowing how to receive. And then I think 5 is you don't need to earn rest. You don't need to do anything to rest. You don't need to constantly do, right? You can just be. And that's good enough. Who you are, we're all constantly working towards something, right? Greater than ourselves, to become the best version of ourselves, which is always evolving. It's an evolution, right? But that's not attached to how much you do. That's attached to who you become in the process, who you are as a person. Because if I never did anything else again, I'm so grateful. I'm so proud of who I am as a woman. I'm a great mother. Let me go back. I'm a great woman. Then I'm a great mother, and I'm a great wife. I'm a great advocate. I love hard. I love my people. I love the people that I serve, truly, honestly, and most importantly, I'm doing the work. I'm actively doing the work every day, and that's one of my biggest accomplishments.
Amen. Thank you. Now, how can we reach you?
So you can reach me, and I love human interaction. So definitely, if you want to find out more about Living Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting, if you want to connect with me about partnerships, or you just want to continue this conversation, I am Alisha Small across all social media platforms. My website is long. It's www.livingfulfilledcoaching.com. You can go there, find out more information about me, or you can send me an email. You can DM me. I'm usually, if I have the time, I'm responsive to my messages, or you can send me an email at services@livingfulfilledcoaching.com. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for sitting with me. We definitely have to do a part 2
Yeah.
because we are also sisters in advocacy and we didn't
Yeah.
even really get to talk about that. So, yes, we definitely got to do a part 2. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
See you
you.
guys next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.